Yes, Mildred. I sent it to your Gmail.
Yeah, I'm in the Gmail account. Hmm.
Did you come into my Zoom? Did you link to the Zoom?
Am I linked to the Zoom? I didn't get an email from you with a Zoom link.
All right, you're in now. My bad.
Oh,
Check
you
it.
sent it to the,
Mm-hmm.
huh. You sent it to,
Okay. All right, Miss Ma'am. The question is, are we live? That would
yes,
be
Mildred? That's the question.
question
I
is,
sent
are
it to
we?
your Gmail. Yeah, I'm in
Ooh,
the Gmail account.
like
You
a
come into my Zoom?
it
Did you
sounds
link
like
to the
it's a
Zoom?
it sounds like it's a delay.
There is a delay. I didn't get an email from you with a.
That's hilarious. Hold on.
Girl, you live. We are live.
Started streaming 81 seconds ago. I don't know because I have pushed stop. I think it's a delay. It's a delay for things like this.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's let me share the live link. Let's see who's on here.
We started. I'm gonna start, okay?
Live. One person. We are live.
All right. You're in now. My bad. Checking.
You sent it to the. So take off the live because I can hear it. You're playing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This
I
is
think it's okay. I was purposely not saying anything crazy just in case. So
this
the
is very
question.
organic. So the people are seeing the organic process of two moms figuring out how to use a Zoom Live for the first time. Um,
Yeah. So the question is, I think we're live now. So everybody's gonna like know our business.
that's all right.
Are you okay with everybody knowing our business?
Oh, I'm okay with vulnerability. There's an art to vulnerability, and I think I've figured it out somewhat. So I'm all right with this. I'm ready.
That should be like the name of our next piece, the art of
The art of
vulnerability.
vulnerability. Look at
You
us.
look nice though. It's the lips for me.
For you, exactly. It's lips for you. That's
It's the
correct.
lips. So here's okay. So we're gonna introduce ourselves because we're
Yes.
gonna do this like the right way, right? And plan this out. But interestingly enough, how does my day go? So I did like all of this business related to like research and writing, everything that it means to be a professor, right? A researcher, author, etc. But I also saw clients today, right? From what I want to say one up until about five until we started. That's why this little glitch is so funny. And I was able to like do my soul work, right? And that's helping vulnerable mothers and families and young people. So right before jumping on this, and like I said, when you said, "Hey Venus, you think is that a good time? Should we reschedule?" What did I say? No, let's jump right in so that I could be just more authentic, right? So let me introduce myself. My name is Humpty. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
So why are we here today? My name is Venus, Dr. Venus Evans Winters, also known as Dr. V. I am a professor, a therapist, and a health and wellness coach. And also, I am the creator and founder of Planet Venus and Planet Venus Institute. And I am here today with Dr. Mildred Boveda. Dr. Mildred Boveda, who's an associate professor at Penn State University. Mildred, could you please introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, I am a professor. I'm a special education researcher. I am your friend. And I don't use that F word loosely. The word friend. Yeah, I'm the daughter of Antelia Cambero, who's no longer in this realm, but she's
Mm,
always with me. And
mm.
yeah, I look forward to continuing to introduce myself during the course of this conversation, and through the back and forth and the dialogue that we're about to have.
Yes, ma'am. And so, before we get started, though, because I know that many people are familiar with Planet Venus here on YouTube or Planet Venus Institute, and people are somewhat familiar too with the podcast, right? Field Notes of a Black Woman Scholar, writing what I like. Field Notes of a Black Woman Scholar. And so, Mildred, a part of this was your brainchild, though, right? So we talked about just doing a special series as a part of the Writing Like a Scholar podcast, but we wanted to focus on a series that we titled Beyond the Soundbite, Black Feminist Research and Wellness. So this is our premiere episode, and we intentionally scheduled it off the back of Mother's Day. So Dr. Boveda, Millie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right now, I'm sharing the actual link to this, a little bit about myself. I'm from,
Okay, be a part of our marketing team. Go ahead.
yeah.
Multitask here.
I was born in Miami, Florida, born and raised in Miami, Florida. I went to school in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I taught in Miami-Dade Public County Schools, Miami-Dade County Public Schools. There you go. Um,
It's
so
a
born
long
and
name.
raised in the county of Dade, very proud of where I'm from. I still have the 305 area code. I went to high school. I did the IB program and I didn't realize how prestigious all of that was. I ended up getting like a lot of recruitment materials from schools like Dartmouth, MIT. And I chose Dartmouth for my undergrad, which was really funny because they had a lot of indigenous people um,
Mm,
or indigenous,
mm,
I don't know, uh,
mm.
materials. When I went there, that was not what was there. You know, Dartmouth is one of the Ivy League schools. It was an okay experience. One thing about Dartmouth, though, Dartmouth introduced me to people from Chicago, and I
Okay.
loved my friends and the people that I met at Dartmouth from Chicago. Like, I'm still cool with those folks still this
So
day.
you understand my accent then?
Oh,
Okay.
like you and
Okay.
I connecting the way we did was was perfect because I remember when I just didn't understand when I was at Dartmouth. Like, I didn't understand why so many people, I'm talking about Black folks specifically,
Hmm.
like, I think, let me be kind because this is live. I felt like, aren't y'all used to Black people being dope? Like, aren't y'all used to, like, it was like this, like,
Mm,
I came to understand later that for a lot of my peers, that was the first time that they were with a critical mass of other Black people for the first time. And for me, it was the first time that I was surrounded by so much whiteness. So for some of my peers,
mm,
they had a critical mass of like-minded, nerdy Black folks. Where I came from, there was a bunch of us. Like, and so
mm.
what I liked about the kids from Chicago, or the people from Chicago, is they were like, there was a critical mass of them who all went to like Whitney Young or they all knew each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Wait,
I,
didn't Michelle Obama also go to Whitney Young?
yeah, she went to
See?
Michelle
Yeah.
Obama, went to Whitney Young, and like a bunch of my buddies went
Yeah,
to
that's a
Whitney
smart
Young.
school.
And I think Kenwood was the other school. I think it was Kenwood or something that's,
Kenwood Academy,
yes, those two
Morgan
schools.
Park. Yeah, they
And
got
so,
some good ones up there. Yeah, Lynwood was
yeah.
another good one too. People speak about over in the
And
city.
so like it was for me that urban kind of flair and then like when Miami's the South and the Caribbean at the same time. And so like that Midwest nice, but also like that urban energy. You know,
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
just love
And
the
I think too what's different about like say Chicago, not just the Midwest, Chicago in particular, we also still kind of have that Southern
oh yeah.
vibe, right? Like I don't know about Southern hospitality, but we are very Southern. We gonna speak to people, we look you in the eyes, we saying we
Right.
see you, right? We acknowledge your humanity. And I think some of that is we're obviously influenced by Southern culture, but also the diaspora culture.
Yes. And so I remember that's when I was like, people from Chicago are so cool. And till this day, I have like this like affinity towards folks from Chicago because of my experience at Dartmouth. So yeah, I went to Dartmouth when I learned Portuguese. I did a study abroad program there and I went to Brazil. And I
Mm.
read Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And so I was
Oh,
a chemistry major before. But when I read Pedagogy of the Oppressed, I was 19 and full of energy. I was like, this is it, you know.
And noted, I am the AURA Paulo Freire past chair.
You
But
sure are.
I served 2 terms. I can't remember my exact terms. Yeah.
Far. So I'll leave it. I mean, so anyways, I went back home, became a teacher in Miami. And then I remember when I left Dartmouth, I was like, I don't need an Ivy League degree, I
Mhm.
don't need that. And then I went to Miami and got a teaching degree. And I realized, well, maybe it might be helpful since I'm not independently wealthy. Maybe it might be helpful to have the prestige. And I love to use the word prestige because of its etymology. It's like magic tricks, it's an illusion, but the prestige of these institutions, it's helpful for people who come from where I come from. So I ended up getting a degree at Harvard in ed policy, and then I got my doctorate at Florida International University. And yeah, that's my academic journey.
I
But
love
there's
the way
a
you
lot of
say
different
that. Like, that's like no big deal, right?
what's not a big deal.
I just got my degree, from Harvard.
Yeah, the hype, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was a wonderful experience. It was good, I still am in touch with a lot of the folks that I met while I was getting my master's. It taught me the academy. So when I went to Harvard, Dr. V, I went as somebody who wanted to influence policy as a practitioner and someone who was a public school dependent. And my mom really was somebody who she never had access to any schooling. She had like 1 year of emergency school growing up. And so she put it in my head how important it was to go to school and to have access to school and how I needed to take advantage of opportunities that she didn't have.
Mm,
And so when I went to Harvard, it was to influence policy. But then what I really learned was the academy. That's what Harvard taught me what the academy
mm,
was. And
mm.
I noticed too in that particular program then, and things changed throughout the years, that like the people who were taking policy and practice classes were more diverse. They were more black and brown. And then the ones doing research and theory and methodology type of track, they were more white and Asian. And I was like, what's going on with this? I noticed that. And I said, well, I can do that. I can do the statistics and I can do this as well. And, just different things that the professors would say. The first time I even heard of AERA, which you already mentioned, which for those who are not in the
American
academy,
Educational
yes,
Research Association.
yes, those of you who are not in the academy, those of you who are not in the university game, it's a humongous conference. But the first time I ever heard about it was from one of my professors. And so, like, I picked up a lot of those kinds of things. To be
Mhm.
honest with you, that's how I picked up a lot. Even when I was in high school, when I
Mm,
was doing the IB program at North Miami Senior High, shout
mm,
out to North Miami Swamp Dogs, the pioneers, but we called ourselves the Swamp Dogs. Um, like I would pick up on the reason why I even knew that I could apply to schools like Dartmouth and MIT is because I was in classes and some of my peers were applying to those things. So I was like, well, if they could do it, and we're taking the same classes and we help each other out. I can do
He
it.
went to Dartmouth first,
Yeah.
second
I went back to Miami and got 2 degrees in Miami
in
in special
Miami
education.
in
And then
special ed.
I went back when I was like, I can't
After you had a career, after you had experience in your teaching.
after I was a mom, I had my kids were like 7 and 8, I think, or six
Mhm.
and
So
seven.
that's your EDD is Harvard, the
My
last thing.
my ed policy degree in
Ed
is
policy,
master's in if it's from Harvard. My
master's.
doctorate is from Florida, from Florida.
Florida, gotcha. Okay, okay.
Now,
Yeah.
how about you? Do the people know? Because I know this is your website. Know your trajectory.
Yeah, you know what? I would say, Google me.
Oh,
Like for real. Like now it's different. I feel like everybody can just kind of, do a search. I used to call my son Google smart. I used to hate Google. I'm like, think critically, don't just go look up everything. But now I guess that's like telling people don't go look up the dictionary, right? It's just extra resource. But my background is and it's as diverse as the roles that I play. But I have a bachelor's degree in sociology and women and gender studies, or gender studies, it's called now. My master's is in social work. So, Mildred, I am a licensed school social worker in the state of Illinois. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm a clinical complex trauma professional levels 1 and 2. That just means I see some of society's, harshest cases, worst cases. And my PhD is in educational policy analysis with a specialization in the sociology and anthropology of education. And all that means is that I use sociological and anthropological research methods to study educational problems and challenges. Yeah. But all of that aside, so Mildred, I have to say, right? So I envisioned this, right?
You did.
I did. And I really wanted to talk to you because not just that you know what your background is, but I do find it fascinating that your background is a lot of who you are, right? And how you show up in space. And so the first thing I was thinking
What was that?
was, do I really want to bring Mildred on camera live? And let me tell you why. Mildred, and people may not know this about you, right? Because they see like Dr. Boveda as like, you know, the smart girl, but the cool girl. Like you're not pretentious.
I try not to be.
Yeah, well, your mama raised you right, right? So you're not pretentious, right? But when you've always showed a lot of respect to me, and when I say deference, I mean like when we in the hood, when we in the neighborhood, when we're in the front porch, and we say that's my big sister. You know what? That when we say that's my big sister, my play big sister. This is the person that's gonna take care of me in this neighborhood, no matter what her history is, no matter what her story is. I'm picking her for a whole lot of reasons, right? And so, but with that said, so you've always showed that type of humility and respect, you know, homegirl respect, sister to sister respect, mother to mother respect, daughter to daughter respect. But at the same time, and I think most people do, right? So maybe, and this is not like toxic positivity by no means. I do think that a lot of people in higher ed are pretty much respectful to each other.
They're phony. A lot of people are polite and they are nice, but they are not always kind and they're not always sincere. And what you're talking about is something different than being polite, right? It's a little deeper, a lot of phoniness.
Yeah,
A lot-
I think right, but respectful. Can we? Okay.
That could be respectful. I mean, I don't know. I think it's disrespectful. So this is where our ways of knowing matter. I think it's disrespectful for you to be polite to me and undermining me. You right? So there's a lot of people who are very
Mm,
like they say they're very civil and they say a lot of nice things.
mm,
I actually prefer my colleagues who keep it raw and let me know that they don't care for me.
mm,
I think
mm.
that's kinder because then I'm not wasting my energy. However, you're right. In the academy, there's a lot of niceties. There's a lot of, doctor this, a lot of politeness.
Yeah,
But that
yeah,
I had towards you. Towards you is deeper than just being polite. And
yeah. And I'm the middle child, so I'll be honest. If people are mean or unkind or disrespectful, I probably wouldn't even catch it. It would probably go over my head because I'm moving on to the next thing to manage or to mediate or to go into a space of self-care. And that's learned. But that's the topic of today, right? How do we do this thing called wellness in the academy? How do we protect ourselves? How do we protect each other, other sisters, other daughters, other mothers, right? Other scholar activists. So, but I was gonna say so, Mildred, my fear in having you on is what people wouldn't know about you is that behind closed doors on the phone, on FaceTime, at restaurant tables, behind hotel room doors, you ask me critical questions. You don't take nothing for granted. So I could say something as simple as what you just did. You just put me on the spot. Like, yeah, it could be something simple. I could make a statement like, oh, people in the academy, they're very, kind to each other or they're nice or whatever, respectful. I said respectful.
yeah,
Let's get that clear because you will roll those tapes on me. I said respectful. Okay. Respectful. You will say, why do you think they're respectful? Or are they respectful? Now that's different from kind. So it's like, but that's what I think smart, brilliant, gifted Black girls and women do. I think we tend to not take words for granted. We're always digging for the meaning behind the word, right? So that's why I was afraid of like being on here with you.
don't be
Because
afraid.
remember, I don't want you to ask me like a tough question and then I can't like answer it and then I have to think
Oh,
about it, you
answer.
know?
You're the real
And so,
deal. You
yeah,
can do
yeah.
this.
And that's absolutely you. Like you don't necessarily give advice, but you would listen But you're gonna ask that question, that why question is like,
I
really?
was the baby in my family, well, of my
That's
mom.
why, yeah.
I was the baby, and like, but big time. I'm the baby cousin in my family, and we have a lot of cousins. Okay, it's a lot of us, and like
Hmm.
cousins are practically brothers and sisters in my family,
Yes.
and I'm
Yes.
the baby of that. And as the baby, you get away with a lot of questions that probably the older ones can ask. And my
Yes, that's
mom
absolutely true. It's the why,
knows
right?
why,
But
why,
I think obviously yours is critical too, right? It's critical. It's coming from a critical space, but I also think it comes from a place of love and care. So I really, wanted you. You said yes too. Like
have you?
I
I really
needed you in
love.
this space. Let's put it that way. I needed you in this space, and you said something very, very important. Do you recall what you said to me when I shot it out there? Probably one of those middle of the night texts, like, "Hey, Mildred, you should really like join me on this podcast. Would you do it? Would you do YouTube? And you got your own beautiful channel, right? Which we'll put in the comments too.
Yes.
And
But
or you
it's
could,
not as, yes, yes.
yes. And I would say that, Mildred, you say yes. I was like, she said yes. You don't have no questions. You don't have no concerns. You don't want to talk, business. She was like, yes. And but she said something. I thought you followed up a day or two later. You said something to the extent, Mildred, you were like, yeah, but if I do this, Venus, it has to be giving something back to me, and not in a selfish kind of way.
Um,
Because what I heard was, Venus, if we jump off this boat, I want to make sure that you have a life jacket for me. That damn oxygen mask is falling off the airplane, whatever. And I was just like, oh, that's a thing in the academy. But I saw it as you asking me for the life jacket.
oh yeah. I mean, this year, you know what I went through. Last year, I actually, when was it? Time is a blur. This past month or in March, my father passed away. And then 17 months before he
Mhm.
passed away, my mom passed away. And my mom is like the giant of my life. She is, I mean, her teachings still are guiding me. And I spent a lot of time mourning her and
Mhm.
also figuring out, well, what would she want me to do in these situations? There was a lot of family stuff going on. My father was making interesting choices because he was used to having her as his moral compass. So I was playing that role, but I'm not his wife, I'm his daughter. And,
Mhm.
I decided for 2025, I need a lot of gentleness. And for 2025, I'm
Mhm.
not saying yes to anything new unless it's going to help me grow. And so
Mhm.
I love the jobs that we do. You and I are both helpers. We are like the people who work with folks who a lot of other people have rejected for whatever reason or who are, at the margins. And I love that. I love teaching. I love giving. I love it. However, after being drained for a couple of years, and to be honest, the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to me has been all enraptured in my mom getting sick and then her passing away. I need to
Mhm.
grow. I need to grow. Um,
Mhm.
and so I that was the follow-up question. I was like, why the podcast? And how do we make sure that we grow, that we get something, that we're not just offering something to whoever's watching, like when we write, we're offering guidances, but what are
Mhm.
we going to do to make sure that we are getting something out of this experience? And
Mhm.
I've always asked that question. I've always asked that question as a feminist. I'm always watchful for not, just giving, giving, giving. But
Mhm.
now I'm more than ever, I'm not saying yes to something unless it's going to be an opportunity for me to learn or an opportunity for me to grow. And this is definitely a learning and growing opportunity for me.
Yeah.
You're an expert, and that word is like a bad word for some people, but you really are. You have expertise in wellness and in health and in meditation. You got your books out here. I have it here to the side right here. Okay, one of many, many books, but you literally have written a workbook for Black women who are engaged in mindfulness and meditation. So I know I'm going to grow, and I know I need to prioritize my wellness, my health. So I'm ready for this. Yeah, and I am.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know it's like a big joke on LinkedIn because I'm like this this woman is actually trusting me with her life. Okay, y'all. She handed it over. We're about to have some fun.
And
Right. So,
you trust me. We are gonna have fun.
yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
loved about this too? It's like because at one point we're talking about writing papers together and doing this, and that'll come. But like this is deeper than that. This is more. This is far better than that for me. I
Well, I think too, Mildred, right? I've been watching. Right? I remember one of the saddest moments for me is when you announced your mom wasn't doing well. And then you announced that she had passed on to the ancestors realm on I think at the time it was Facebook. I was so freaking sad.
Yeah,
And there's nothing like not being able to help a friend or a sister friend during that time. And I think that so it's interesting that because I got a chance to watch your journey over these last 17 months. And I saw when, she passed away, you all had services, but I also saw when you resurfaced. Right? So again, here's that analogy, that boat and that life jacket.
hmm.
But I remember when you resurfaced and I was like, she's not the same.
Oh
You
no.
weren't sad. I didn't feel that coming through. You know what it was? You were publicly mourning. You
Yeah,
were publicly mourning.
I was. I was letting everybody know. And even when she got sick, like even when I was like, I'm not all right. I let the people know I am not myself. I do not feel well.
Hmm.
I am not okay. But after she passed away, I was broken. I was broken. I am
Hmm.
still, I am changed. I am altered. And I want to thank you at this point too. First of all, you did show up for me and you always do. So maybe it must have been hard because you knew how hard this was for me, and there are limitations, but you know what you did, and I know what you did, and so
Yeah.
thank you. And that's between us, right?
But I think it was a difficult moment, but I think the message that I wanted to send to you quietly but also assertively, right, was that it's a process.
It,
And so even when I think about wellness and why I wanted us to partner, collaborate, to be in dialogue publicly as well as privately or behind closed doors is because when I think about this idea of wellness and health, I know it's a process. I didn't wake up in 2025 and say, "Oh, I want to be whole and healthy." I didn't wake up in 2024 and say, "I want to run a damn marathon." No, I didn't, trust me. I thought about that actually the year before. But
yeah,
what led me to wanting to run a marathon? Well, it was a process. And I'm interested, Mildred, too, in your process of coming to your journey into health and wellness.
yeah.
This started back in 2013, 14, when Trayvon Martin was killed by a grown man for simply being a child who needed a snack and a
Trayvon's
good
from my
walk.
neighborhood, by the way. Trayvon Martin is from the neighborhood that I'm from. He's from Miami
Wow. See,
Garden.
okay.
And so
Yeah,
I mean, Trayvon Martin has become a symbol, but he was from a place
a
um
place. Yeah.
and a time. And when my kids were going to school, I mean, in Miami Gardens, when I grew up, it was called Carroll City. Now it's called Miami Gardens.
Hmm.
But yeah, he went to school in Miami Gardens.
Yeah. And so that hit me because by this, I had a teenage son at that time. But it also hit me because, I jumped right into justice work. And at that time we were not, it wasn't just for me, it wasn't about a pencil and paper or a lecture. I mean, I was putting my whole body into it. And
That's the
so
first time I met you too.
yeah, I was pretty active then. And Mildred, I couldn't even, I'm not even rehash stuff we saw and heard during that time. But not only am I spending my days and my weekdays and, lecturing on race and gender and sexuality and policy and research, I'm spending my evenings and my weekends either engaged in movement work or supporting those who are engaged in movement work while also parenting, while also experiencing at its finest the backlash against human rights. right? So these people in our classrooms in higher ed, they're pushing back against us, not just the students, but also the undergrads. I mean, the graduate students, even our own colleagues,
Oh,
like
yeah.
people don't know. So it was a tough time. I'm grappling with real kids dying on the street and trying to fight, and other kids and adults standing up for their rights. But I'm seeing adults coming after us for what we're researching and writing about. So I'm
Yeah.
getting hit twice at all ends while trying to raise my own children and take care of my own family. And as you know, when you engage in any type of race work, it's triggers from childhood trauma. And so I found myself either in a state of anger all the freaking time, or guess what? Trying to swallow that pain away, drink that pain away. And girl, don't get me wrong now, Dr. We still love some good vodka, baby. I do. I love a good goose, honey. But me and Oprah, we got that in common. We love a good vodka, right? But I found myself like using it as a crutch. Like, oh, I could go to sleep, or I'm about to kick back now that I'm done with that, right? And then I'm reaching for it in the daytime. Like, I just need this now to just maintain, to get through. And then but then at some point, I want to say right before I said, this is not working for me. I can't always be in a state of rage. And that's when I began to walk and eventually run. It was something about being free outside. Of course, I was practicing at that time too, like the tenets of, Pan-African spirituality, Buddhist psychology, right, as a mindfulness practitioner. And when I so that was kind of easier than to not abuse, alcohol or dissociate from my body, right? Dissociate from my body. But then guess what happened?
What happened?
My Arbery was killed
Oh,
while running. And I could not get past that. So when the pandemic hit, I was like, I can't even go outside. I was afraid to go outside. I was afraid to run alone. And then I knew because of who we follow, right? I've been in this business since I was in my mid-20s, on the professor track as an assistant, then associate, then full. But Mildred, I had this idea. This is how Planet Venus was created. Planet Venus was created because it dawned on me as a clinician specializing in trauma. I said, oh, SHIT.
hmm.
I think we have to like censor that, otherwise YouTube is gonna like hit us with,
Yeah.
I
We don't
said,
want
oh,
to.
SHIT. I
Hmm.
said, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
not in 400 years in this country have Black women have ever been told to sit still. We process our trauma through movement. We
Getting to
process
breathe.
our trauma in community. We process our trauma in actually working, for better or for worse. So I had to go live at this time on Facebook, and I had to serve my community and say, uh-oh, we're dealing with a racial pandemic and we're dealing with a health pandemic, and we're being told to shelter in place and quarantine. Black women's nervous system is not going to be able to take this. So I had to figure out how to be of service to my community while also teaching at the university. Keep in mind, they're telling us to teach through our trauma, right?
That was
And
a wild.
so that basically is how, that was a part of my wellness journey. And before you know it, I think I woke up in 2023 and said, 22, I'm going to get in tip-top shape. And then I hit the button on 2023 and paid for a full marathon. That's right. Like who wakes up and says, I think I'm gonna run 26 miles for fun, right? 26.2 miles for fun. And so that was a part of the journey. And then I woke up right in the middle of the marathon and realized, oh, SHIT, I'm perimenopausal.
Yeah.
My whole body was like, you didn't lost your mind.
Wow.
And I've been like trying to process that. And as you know, with Black and brown women and women who are indigenous people and people from working class backgrounds, they don't even know enough to tell us about what the hell is perimenopause, let alone menopause. And just like you, my mother died young, way younger than your mother. My mother passed away when I was 9. So we don't even have the family history to go and ask our mothers and grandmothers, like, hey, how did your whole physiological system change? Hell, stop at this point. How did it change? And how did it affect your mental health, physical health, spiritual health? So this is a part of my journey. So I'm here today with you, and the reason why I want to have these conversations of health and wellness in the academy unapologetically, because we are one of the few people, in my professional clinical opinion, who actually disconnect from our bodies and keep doing the work and think being smart and reading and writing is enough. It's not enough.
It's the Cartesian divide, right? I think, therefore I am, right? And
Mm,
even those of us who are decolonial and we reject those westernized ways of thinking, even though we know that our embodied understandings, we're Black feminists, we understand our embodied knowings matter. The culture, the training, the
mm,
it's in the air, this idea that we can dissociate our mind from the body and that we can think and be, and we can't think and be if our physical being is not well.
mm.
Something that
And
you
guess
said.
what? We can't raise healthy children,
Oh,
healthy families, and we're not gonna live longer. We're not gonna live healthy, high quality lives. We can have as much money we want to, or in my case, hoard as many books as I want to. But if we're not mentally, physically, spiritually, and culturally healthy, right?
make it.
We are still we're still slaves. We're still enslaved people.
Yeah.
That's all.
So
And I know that sounds harsh. But before we go on Mildred, because I mean this is beyond a soundbite, so I'm glad we're keeping it real.
yes.
Mildred, what does wellness mean to you?
Yeah. Wellness means to me, I'm gonna tell you when, and it's conflated with what the when I kind of figured out what wellness was. But I want to say just quickly the part about your mom having passed away when you were young. That happened to my mom. I mean, my mom
Mhm.
never witnessed anybody grow old. And my mom had me older in life. So my mom was 44 when I was born. I was a surprise. And so I remember being 5 or 6 and her going through menopause and her like on Saturdays, everybody was like, leave mommy alone, right? Like for like a couple years, I'll watch my Saturday morning cartoon and leave mommy alone. But I remember her figuring out how to age because she never saw
Mhm.
anybody in her family, her mom, her aunts, her older sisters make it to 80, and she made it to 85. And so those models really matter. And I remember like seeing her figuring out, well, what does it mean that my body, and one time she stood up really fast and she goes, oh my God, I forgot my body's weak, right? And she cried, right?
Mhm.
She
Mhm.
didn't have a model for that. And so I'm kind of grateful that my mom, for 101 reasons, my mom had me when she had me. But I think
Mhm.
that that's really powerful. Some of us, because of racism, because of structural inequality, because of racial capitalism, we don't have models of women getting older because they either have passed away, maybe they're incarcerated. Um, you know, yeah. And
But what we do have, which is why I think people like you and I live in these contradictions, we do have models of care.
yes.
We have models of care. And I think that that's why some of us, I'll speak for myself, that's why I choose to show up the way that I do, because I do have a model of care, whether that's, my aunts, my great aunts, my, grandmother, my godmother,
And my
even I
mom's
would say,
story.
even my extended uncles and, families like family, but and also the church community obviously helps step in and take care of us. And I know people and families and where we didn't even send our people to old folks home or
Oh no.
what do we call it, hospice. We didn't even have them, like we washed our own, people's bodies after that.
Yeah.
So so I know communities of care, which is probably why I lean towards social work so much, even not even psychology, but social, the work of being social, being a part of a larger community and not just dealing with one individual. As a clinician, obviously I have to deal with the individual mind, right? But I think as a social worker who works from a Pan-African perspective, right? And understanding critical feminisms and womanism, right? I think that I understand the importance of communities of care, right? And so that's what we're trying to do for each other.
Yes. That's what this is. That's what we
Right, right.
enacting in front of people. But
Now,
it
I do want the people to know though, how for you, like, how do you think about
but
wellness? And we're talking about your
let's
personal,
talk about wellness.
yeah,
So
your
wellness
personal. Hmm.
So wellness for me, at one time I was using the word wellness and as like fitness. I was overweight. Uh, it started when I went on the market you and I met when you were an associate professor and I was a doc student. Even though we both had kids and both had been in we had a lot of things similar in our lives, but I was a doc student. You were already associate professor. I think you were soon to apply for full, but I was on the market. And as soon as I went on the market, I started to grow
I
almost like,
got full in 2019. Yeah.
so I got my first academic position, assistant professor, 2017.
Mm, mm,
So I started getting bigger and bigger, and all the sitting down, all the writing of papers, all of that, I was not fit, and I was using wellness as fitness. And I realized, like, during a conversation when somebody said something about, yeah, your wellness goal, or I'm like,
that
well,
was me. We text each other. I said, "What is your wellness goals?" Remember, we came up. We're gonna share that too before we go, because I think everybody
it
in
was way
social
back.
media now know what our goals are.
I'm talking about in 2020. This was
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
pandemic.
okay.
Somebody said, and I'm like, well, I'm
Mhm.
well. I'm well. Like, I'm overweight. I'm
Yeah, I get it.
not out of
Yeah,
shape, but
yeah.
I'm healthy. Like, my cholesterol's good. My blood pressure is fine.
Hilarious.
And what else? My spiritual wellness is a big part of wellness for me.
You
My
are very, I wouldn't say you're just spiritual, you're religious too. People may not know that about you, but you are.
I am. I'm a church girl. I'm a churchy girl. And
Yeah,
my spiritual wellness, like being
yeah,
spiritually well, and sometimes it's connected to, what I do with my body. I will do a fast. So I was overweight and I was out of shape, or the shape that I was used to, which was like a certain shape of Miami.
yeah. I saw that picture on Instagram, Bebop girl. I was
Yes, yes, right. Like I
like,
had a certain, but I was not sick. I was not unwell. And I wasn't unwell mentally. I wasn't unwell spiritually, but I was out of shape. So wellness incorporates all of those things: mental wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, social emotional wellness. And then the other time where it was reinforced was when I was taking care of my parents for a couple of weeks at a time. I'll go to Dominican Republic and my dad would be like, "Girl, you're fat. Like, you need to lose some weight. You are so fat. Like, lose weight." And, I didn't care. Like, Dominicans, my family's Dominican. There's this rawness, like, and I'm like, all right, I am. I'm overweight right now. I'm a big girl. I'm a big girl. But then he was like, I'm not bullying you, because I guess he felt guilty about it because I wasn't going back and forth. I'm not bullying you. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that, Poppy. Let's talk about why you are. He said, I'm not bullying you. I'm concerned about your health. I'm concerned about your wellness. I said, well, out of all your children, I'm well enough to be here running after you two right now. Right. And the other stereotypes about big girls and fat people is that we're greedy. I'm not greedy because I'm giving everything for you guys and to you guys. So I'm not greedy or lazy. Well, I'm not lazy because I'm up all day doing my work and also making sure that you get all your needs. So I'm not unhealthy. I'm not greedy. I'm not, what is it? I'm not lazy or a sloth. I'm well, you know? So those are two times where wellness kind of, like, I understood what wellness was, and
Mhm.
it is connected to fitness.
It went from being a concept to being more of a way of living.
Yes, yes. And wellness to me is being able to respond to my needs, like being able to get up and go, like being able to move and think, and also to those that I love, like being able, when I'm well, I can take care of the people that I love around me. When I'm not well, I can't. And there was a period for the first time where I wasn't well. Like after my mom passed away, there was like, it was around the time her 1 year anniversary was coming, and I was not well. I was not well. And I had to do spirit work. I had to, ask for prayers. I had to go on walks. I went to the doctors. I made it my business to physically go to doctors, something that I had neglected to do for a while because I knew I wasn't well. I was really sad, and it was connected with the mind. It was connected with the body. But yeah, wellness is like all of that. And spiritual wellness for me is a big part of my wellness trajectory, what I consider me being well.
Hmm. Yeah, very good. Wow. Yeah, I think for me, I do have a clinical perspective on wellness, but I
What is that?
also I have more of a holistic too perspective on wellness, right? I think now at this point, because I do want to destigmatize mental health, I think that wellness incorporates mental, physical, spiritual, and cultural well-being, right?
That cultural well-being. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's important to the psyche, right?
It is.
And I, during the pandemic, the reason why I became a health and wellness coach is because I had many clients who were presenting with symptoms, that are related to mental health issues, depression, anxiety, anger was a big one, right? It still is. I think now it's not as much, but I do see that. But I realized that there was a strong relationship, and now based off the science, we know it's a strong correlation between one's overall like health, like what they're putting in their body or not, right? I learned now going through the changes, what I'm not putting in my body could be just as bad as what I am putting in my body. But so that gut health matters, but also that physical component.
Yeah.
So being physically active can also help, an individual like process uh toxic stress or hormones and or cortisol that's related to it. And I do think in the academy, especially over the last decade, we do find ourselves in front of these devices
Yeah.
more. Like I
Absolutely.
didn't even, with the Zoom thing, I was like, oh my God, I don't even like when people ask me anymore, like, can we meet on Zoom? No, I don't want to see no Zoom technology.
You're
Um,
sitting for hours at a time.
we sit in front of the technologies, our laptops, our tablets. We sit in these hard ass chairs. We sitting in long ass meetings, right? Or we're reading and evaluating
Yes.
papers online. Then we have classes online. And I'm not saying that I'm against or for like online technologies. Then we scrolling through social media. I'm just saying that in our profession, like I said, we're being hit from all angles. The national level, the institutional level, individuals in our own classrooms, right? And then then those of us who come from backgrounds with traumatic stress, we're bringing in our own histories.
Oh yeah.
We're bringing in our own personal baggage, and so I think sometimes we're the first ones. If people aren't gonna like me saying this, Mildred, but I think because many of us are so damn smart and many of us think we're part of the middle class. I'm like, if you gotta go to work every day, you're part of the working class. Let's be clear, but that's not right. But I think that we think we making it. But many of us are dissociating from our bodies.
100%. 100%. Let me tell you a case in point of that. One of a aha moment I'm having right now, just talking to you right now. So look at you, is like people were like, you don't stop. When my parents got sick, because like
Mm,
it was my parents and then my older siblings who were like parents to me. I found out that they weren't 100% well too. I mean,
mm,
I was overwhelmed by like these parental figures all not being well. And I was well physically.
mhm,
Anyways, I could not stop. I was like, go, 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 go. And I think that was what that was. I'm having an aha moment was me like burning pent up energy, like just ripping and running. My mom loved it because she was like one of the older daughters. So she loves the little one serving her. So she loves screaming my name, Mildred, and I'll run and, but it was healing for me to be go, go, go. And when I would come back home to do work, is sit down, be in a Zoom meeting, write, produce. Like I'm an editor of a journal, right? So I have to read other people's things as well. And that's a lot of sitting time. And I'm realizing, wow, the other thing about how this culture of like, okay, we're middle class and we're in the academy, we're in the ivory tower, but it's like horrible for sometimes if we're not careful for our bodies is there was a woman, she was a sister in the church who used to help my mom. And I used to take my mom's like vitals and her blood pressure. She was like, take mine, right? She was
mm,
60 something years old, in
mm,
shape, bam, 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 bam body, right? And she was like, take my vitals. And I did. And her heart rate was in the 50s, right? It was in the middle of the day. And she was ripping and running and helping my mom out because that's the, like,
mm,
the community helping, right? And when I saw, because mine is in the 80s, right? Like, and I'm 20 years younger than this woman. And when I saw her vitals, I was like, oh, I need to do what she's doing. She doesn't have a car. She's a
mm,
woman who is, who she benefited quite a bit from us being around. I mean, like she would eat things that most of us wouldn't eat. In terms of just she couldn't throw that part of the chicken away, things that we would throw, right? So but she would walk everywhere and up and down lomas, mountains and hills and stuff. And I'm like, I need to do that because she's in her 60s, her body's banging, her heart rate is in the 50s. I'm not sick now, but my heart is always going so much faster than hers. Uh, she's doing something right, and we're doing something that we need to examine.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
We bought into capitalism, and we bought into the status, the so-called status and so-called prestige. But it's funny because Mildred, that's what I think I mean when I say we understand the physical part of wellness, right? I think we're now as part of larger American culture, even Black culture, African culture, we're understanding mental wellness. I'm not sure we're there yet with the spiritual part, the cultural
I
part,
think those
because
two.
many of us are disconnecting from the culture in order to succeed in these very Eurocentric Western capitalist, spaces. But I think too, in order to survive that, you are cutting off a part of your spirit. Now, and I'm not saying religion, I'm
I
saying
agree
your
with you.
spirit.
No,
Your
I agree
spirit.
with you 100%.
And I think for me as a part of my journey is checking in with myself because and you probably have seen it. I think I don't know, but tell me, because I feel like a part of the journey that's been hard for me is when you disconnect from that ego.
Hmm.
I think people like, who the hell am I dealing with? Because right, because but I think about it as a trauma professional, again, seeing some of the harshest case. I see cases that I wouldn't even want to name here in this space. I've seen and heard stuff you don't, you know. Um, I think a lot of what I see in the academy, I'm be like, but is it really worth it, y'all? When I
Yeah,
got to deal with this baby who just experienced this and survived, I know trauma, but I know resilience, right? Or if I got to deal with a woman, he did what? And you still on this earth breathing and believing in God? Like, whoa.
and believing in
Like,
fellow humans still, and still trying to go get in a relationship with another one. If she had
yeah. Or
it's
how
from.
about this? You believe in me. Like, I ain't nothing. Right? It's like you right. So then if you show up in my class and you mad because I gave you a B minus on your policy paper, or y'all excited because you got your 15th publication. I'm over here like Janice Jackson. What have you done for me lately? Right. So I think that yeah, it's funny because you kind of that ego is a part of having to be in this role and be good at it. But at the same time, if you disconnect from that ego, and you try to go into self-preservation mode, you can feel lonely, you can feel isolated, right? So
Yeah,
that's why I think communities of care is so important if we're going to move towards real healing, right? But I think too, if we move outside of these Western Eurocentric metrics of
of-
wellness, I have my clinical models, but I also have my cultural and my spiritual, guidelines and values and systems and sciences. So now with that said, Mildred, right? Because I remember too in our back and forth, and I said, "Oh, Mildred, you want that life jacket, baby? Okay, we're gonna do communities of care." And I believe in Ujima, collective work and responsibility. I don't really like that accountability because that comes out of the business world, which comes out of the slavetocracy of accounting, right? Account the ability of to account, the ability to count. You just a ledger, basically, in somebody's ledger book. So but I do like the idea of being responsible to each other and for each other. And I remember I was like, yeah, so Mildred, what we gonna do? You was like, girl, I'm about to walk 10,000 steps. And I was like, okay.
yeah.
And
You know, what I said first was, I'm gonna meditate every day. And you were like, what you gonna do physically? You gotta do something
right, you know
physical.
what I'm saying? That's what
Like,
it was.
I'm gonna
That's what it was.
meditate.
Yeah,
I'm
when
gonna meditate every day. And you were like, no, but what's your physical fitness? And I said,
I
oh,
did say, yeah.
do 10,000
Right.
steps.
Yeah, it was like saying, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna eat healthier and I'm gonna eat like more protein and I'm gonna eat more. Then I said something like, yeah, but where are your vegetables?
That's right. You push.
Right. So, because I do think, I do think that mindfulness and journaling and, uh, meditation and prayer is important. right? But I was also saying, but yeah, and we have to move our bodies.
And you were right. And I
Yeah,
appreciated that push. I really did.
yeah,
Yes. And so I'm doing the 10,000 steps daily. That's something, it's funny because I have journals upon journals. I'm a journal kind of person. So I have this journal and I have this journal and I have wellness journals and I have
yeah. That was
like and
yeah, me too. I got journals everywhere, my desk, in my bed, in
I
my
love
bed, in
journals.
my purse, yeah, in my nightstands. It's ridiculous. So let's tell the listeners, our community, what is your your wellness goals for the month of May?
And let's list those different types of wellness again, because I appreciated that list that you said. You said there was
Okay.
physical wellness.
So we have mental, physical, spiritual, and cultural wellness. And
Okay.
usually, Mildred, when I'm working in my coaching or clinical practice, I also add financial because
Yes,
I think that people of African ancestry, we have to have at the center economic justice as a component of
yes.
liberation and freedom. So I usually do say that, right?
Good.
Not
I'm glad you
for
do
people of color
because I
women
was
too.
thinking it. I
Yeah.
was thinking it when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about. But the financial aspect of it is, are you well? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it-
we call it for economic justice too. But okay, so mental, physical, spiritual, and cultural
let's
health.
start off
And
with those.
yeah. So what are some of your goals for the
Write
month
it
of
in the
May?
comments. Write it in the comments. And I saw some people had started doing that in our
Yeah.
LinkedIn posts when you were announcing this. But yes, please share. Maybe you inspire us. I actually have more than like there's like wellness goals that I'm comfortable sharing.
Yeah,
And
which what tell me what you're comfortable sharing. Because I do think some goals, wellness goals are personal. Everything is so, yeah.
yeah,
But some things should be personal. But what are a couple you feel comfortable sharing?
you know, um, I want to cook 5 times a week, right?
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
5 times a week in my that's like a goal that I've had for myself for a while. I mean, with all the traveling that we do for work, or sometimes we have deadlines, or sometimes we just me. I'm like, I just don't feel like doing it.
Mhm.
But like reframing that that's part of self-care. Me cooking a meal for myself is me loving on myself, right? Loving
Mhm.
on my partner, my husband Nathan as well, but myself too. Um,
Mhm.
so cooking 5 times a week. So I mentioned the heart rate, the resting heart rate of this sister in DR. Ultimately, I would like to do that. I would like to run a marathon in the future.
Mhm. And
But
you know I want you to because I already invited you to.
you
I
sure did.
really want you to.
And I want to, and I want to. I
And I
got.
promise you, Mildred, if you do it, I will stay with you the whole time.
I love it.
Because when it comes to marathon running, especially after the age of 35, we're not trying to win. We're
No,
actually trying to, this sounds weird, we're trying to conquer our mindset.
I love it.
Right. By the time we get there to that starting line, you can best believe our body has what it needs physical, right? The human body only supposed to go a certain amount of distance anyway. You're gonna hit a wall, but anything, I know my wall, by the way, my wall is 13 miles. When I hit that half marathon mark, right? That's when I start literally praying. Just for the record, me and God having a whole conversation. I think I'm talking to my mama. Hey girl, how you doing up there?
Um,
Let's talk. Right.
um,
But I'm gone from mile 13 through 16. On 16 is when I joined the race, to be honest, right? Right. I know we said we are gonna get personal, but I'm gone. In 13 to 16 miles, I'm having a whole conversation between me and God, right? And trap music. But after mile 16, I'm back in the club. And
back in
then,
the way.
right, then 16, the race starts for me. Yeah. So, and actually 16, I wake back up. Mile 21, I'm racing at that point against
Wow.
myself. So with that said, though, yeah, it's a journey.
But I'm
So,
starting
but
on
if you
10,000
ever decide to join,
Well, I
it
will.
ain't about me trying to win or come in the top anything. It'll be me supporting, my sister friend, another daughter, because that's what this is about, right? This is about
Absolutely.
healing and community, and so okay. So anyway, go ahead.
That's it for
So
for
cooking.
For
Um,
spiritual, I love this idea of cultural wellness, and then I need to think about that a bit. Like, what does that mean? And that's one of the side effects of my mom and dad being sick is I'm a lot more connected to where they grew up, and so I'll think a little bit about that. So for next time, I'll come up with a cultural wellness goal. For spiritual wellness, I would like to start doing a little bit more for the children. You know, focusing on children in my community, like I was very blessed to have a strong like youth group, for example, of little prayer warriors. I'm still cool with all of my church friends from back in the day. In fact, you Carla was at AERA, Carla Matz. So I think that that's something that's a spiritual, like a spiritual goal for me. And what else did we say? Spiritual, mental.
Physical, mental, spiritual, cultural.
So the mental part, would writing this book that I want to write, would that count in mental wellness, or is that too nerdy?
It is because we're nerds. I mean, we're here. We're nerds. And I think that's a part too of our spiritual cultural health is that we can admit we're smart. We okay with that. We got to get over this. It's not cool to be just us ourselves, right? Like you can be
Yeah.
cool and you can rock the dopest glasses that Mildred is wearing
Oh,
today with the
so
chain,
sweet.
right? I want orange, red, blonde hair, right? And I actually convinced my son, my 25-year-old, like, wow, mom, your hair looks great. I said, well, I've been out running in the sun and it just got hit by the sun rays and this what
And
happened. He was like, that's pretty cool. I like it.
he believed you.
He believed me. And he's smart. So he's clearly a smart man.
Ah, that's funny. Well, your hair
Yeah.
looks great and you're beautiful.
Thank you. It's the sun.
People already started saying that you and I favor. Somebody said, you guys kind of look alike.
People have been saying that for the last 5, 6, 7 years, trust me. And I had to agree the other day when we showed up on FaceTime, like with nothing. It was like in a bonnet. It was like,
And we'll have some
look
of
like
those
me.
too
Yeah.
for the future. There will be versions of this where I will not have mascara on and it'll be a little bit more raw. We got to
No,
figure
I
out
only threw on the lipstick for the day, y'all. I'm just trying to impress y'all, okay? I didn't want Mildred to
a
see
good
me
first
there with my
impression.
lip. And so I forgot where I was going with this, but in here,
What
yeah,
about your goals? What are your goals?
okay. My goal is I want to for May, I want to run at least 30 miles.
Oh, wow.
And Mildred, I've been taking it serious because we planned this out. So I think I'm at mile 18.74. So I do use a tracker, by the way, for people who
Excellent.
are interested. 18.74 is where I'm at. So I have 2 weeks to make up for 10, at least 10, what, 10 more miles? No, I said 15 miles. So I exceeded the 15 miles. So now we're going with
Hey,
30. Yeah,
that's
30. I
beautiful.
wanted to do 15 miles by the end of the month, but I'm at 18.74.
That's
But I'm
amazing.
in the middle of a mental health awareness challenge. I'm an ambassador for Still I Run, where I bring awareness to mental health and running. And so my campaign is to just have safe spaces for, Black girls, girls of color, and Indigenous girls and young women to be outside, like safely. And it's harder than people think. So by the time I get to mile 8 or 9, it's getting dark outside. It's been times I have to like cut my run, right? Or if I see a strange person, or if I'm in, I have to be very careful. So safety is an issue that's tied to our physical and mental health.
It is.
But nonetheless, so I wanted to complete 15 miles. I completed 18.7574. Yay! So now I'm gonna up it to 30 as a part of this mental health challenge. The other thing is for me, Mildred, I can't separate mindfulness from movement. So whether I'm walking or running,
I
that's a
think
part
that,
of my meditation practice. So I
I,
practice mindfulness meditation. I know in the West, we're afraid sometimes to put that spiritual component with the clinical component or the mental health component, but
but
I don't. Too, from an African perspective, we don't separate.
I like that
Um,
about this book too. I'm gonna plug it again. She talks about it in the book.
we don't separate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, so that's another space for me. So I
Healing and
usually
spiritual
say,
rituals.
right, if I'm in public, right, or I'm talking in community, I'll usually say mindfulness practitioner or mindfulness. But the truth is I'm a mindfulness meditation practitioner coming out of, the Kemetic tradition, uh, the African indigenous, tradition. And so with that said, so if I'm in nature, if I'm walking, if I'm running, if I'm having a moment of quietness, that is meditation. I don't have to be, skinny and sitting on the mat. Now, mat work is cool, right? But, so that is journaling is a part of my wellness journey now too, is definitely making sure, Mildred, that I'm showing up for you
Aw,
and for this. I'm going to actually call this a project because me and you both, we're very goal oriented. We wouldn't have we wouldn't be where we're at right now, or
no,
have the children that we have or the relationships that we have if we weren't. Let's put it that way. And I'm trying to teach my kids that, to be mindful and to be intentional in how they walk on this earth, because that's a part of being free. You're in charge of your self, your past, your present, and your destiny.
I love that. Part of
Yeah.
freedom is intentionality and being able to execute your intentions. I think that's
Bam, that's the part of being free and being basically responsible for the consequences. Like taking responsibility for any consequences, positive or not so positive. And so, Mildred, I promised, because I heard you. One of
hmm,
my favorite books, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. I heard you when you said what you said. You said, if I do this, it has to be meaningful and I have to be getting something out of it.
yeah,
So I'm going to commit to this as a project. So I'm going to commit to the podcast, to the YouTubes. I'm going to commit to you, and being authentic, not in a therapeutic way, but in a she's a daughter, I'm a daughter. You could be my daughter, shit, right? Excuse me, YouTube. Don't censor us for saying the SHIT word. That means I'm talking the truth. Right? But I do, and I want us to be intentional with the people who show up here listening to the podcast,
yes,
watching the YouTubes, because you have a YouTube too, joining us on LinkedIn, right? Or even Instagram, but also even a newsletter, because we both are we're writers, right?
we are.
So this should be a journey because I promise you, I'm going to bring health and wellness to the academy. No matter how uncomfortable it may be, because it's hard. Right, we all got these wellness programs. What do they call it? The we got our insurances and we got the what do you call them? What do they call when your company, yeah,
Yes,
those
yes,
EAPs, right? We have those or whatever. But I'm talking about something that's more reflective of front porch politics, how we used to be when we were little girls getting our hair done on the front porch.
yep. I like that. I love it. You know,
Okay, so let's wrap up. Mildred, I got a question for you. Okay, so we're gonna start calling this segment, this very tail end of the conversation, lessons in daughtering. And my goal is to bring on other academicians or professors, researchers, teachers, practitioners, health,
third.
yogites, everything, right? Whomever.
Yes,
Some people, my dream list we've already created.
yes,
We're
we
going
have.
to call this lessons in daughtering.
Yes.
So the closing question is, well, what does daughtering mean to you? No, what lessons have daughtering taught you? What lessons have daughtering taught you?
Daughtering, because we talk a lot about mothering in Black feminist circles, don't we? I
Yep,
like
but you had to go read that other book called Black Feminism. Oh, look,
it.
I was just teaching it this semester.
It is. I
Black
remember.
feminism and qualitative inquiry. It's just on my
I had the privilege to be one of the first people to choose or to look at the different covers that you were choosing. I remember that. I remember
yes.
in Pittsburgh, and you were like, "Look at these different covers," and I'm like, "She's smoking," and you're like, "I like it."
My mother was a smoker. Yes, she was. So
Uh,
what has
so
daughtering taught you?
so that is daughtering. Okay. That right there is an example of daughtering to me. Like, what is daughtering? Daughtering is honoring those who have mothered us and also honoring that by not just freeze framing ourselves into what our parents were, but also taking the baton, I guess, or taking the instruction that they offered us, the guidance that they offer us, and giving back to them as well if they're still with us in this physical realm, like back and forth together. Let's continue to grow together, and then also, that is beautiful that you said, yeah, I chose that cover because my mom was a smoker, right? And you haven't seen your
Mhm.
mom since you were 9 years old in this smoking, right? But then when you see that cover, there's a connection to that. That sense of responsibility goes beyond time and beyond these realms, right? And it's a responsibility. My mom was a phenomenal daughter. Let me tell you, she modeled daughtering for me because
Yes.
I never met my grandfather and grandmother, and I know all their business because my mom studied her parents. And my mom, she just loved her parents, and her parents were just up here. And so I just
I think all Black girls study their parents. I think all Black girls who can study their mothers. It is a survival
she did.
strategy.
And
Trust me, for better or for worse,
she
it's
passed it
survival.
on to me. Like I know my grandparents, even though I never met them, because my mom was such a student of her parents, right? And I think that was daughtering. And I think I was, and I see my daughter, for example, Leah, who
Watching. They're watching.
yes, yes, you've worked with Leah. Leah sees you as a mother figure in this world, and also she's done some daughtering with you too. And so that to me is I love it. I love the concept of daughtering. I appreciate it, and you know, I'm grateful that we engage in this daughtering work together.
Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do moving forward, daughtering. And in the chat, do put in the chat what are you considering? What do you think about daughtering? What has daughtering done for you? I don't even want to know the definition. What has daughtering done for you? What lessons have it taught you? And so at that moment, thank you, Mildred, for being so brave. So we have another 6 months, give or take 5 or 6 months, to give attention to this series that we are intentionally uh, coining beyond the soundbite, Black feminist research and wellness. And we'll be focusing on, in the spirit of our reflections and our relationships with our mothers, this idea of daughtering research, health, and wellness. Thank you all.
That was great. I had a great time. Did you have a good time?
I had an awesome time. So now we just got to make sure we stop everything.
Yes, stop